I wasn't planning on anything unusual that night. Just a workout, shower, maybe grab something quick to eat and go home. That's it. No drama, no surprises. Definitely no extra training. But Marcus had other ideas. My name's Ethan. I'm 23, and I'd been going to that gym for about 2 months when things started to shift. At first, Marcus was just the trainer. You know, the type confident, calm, always watching everything without looking like he was. Early 30s, easily, maybe a little older. Built, but not in that over-the-top way. More like controlled strength. The kind you notice more the longer you look. The first time he corrected me, I was struggling through a set of squats. "You're dropping too fast," he said, stepping beside me. "You're letting gravity do half the work." I straightened up, a little embarrassed. "Yeah, I kind of figured." He smirked slightly. Not mean, just amused. "Try again. Slower. I'll watch." And he did. From then on, it became a pattern. I come in, start my routine, and somehow Marcus would appear. Not hovering, not obvious. Just there when I needed help. Adjusting my form. Giving short, precise advice. Sometimes his hand would hover near my waist or my back, like he was deciding whether to touch or not. Sometimes he did. Nothing inappropriate. Just enough to guide me. But every time it happened, I felt it more than I probably should have. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But then came that night. It was late. Way later than I usually stayed. The gym was almost empty, just a couple guys on treadmills and someone cleaning equipment in the far corner. The usual noise was gone. No music blasting, no crowd. Just space. I finished my last set and sat up, wiping sweat from my neck. "Done already?" Marcus's voice came from behind me. I turned. "Yeah, legs are dead." He stepped closer, arms crossed, studying me for a second. "You rush your last sets," he said. I huffed out a laugh. "You've told me that like 5 times. And you still do it." "Fair." I grabbed my bottle, taking a long drink. "Guess I'll fix it next time." Marcus didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked around the gym slow, deliberate, then back at me. "Or," he said, "you stay." I raised an eyebrow. "Stay?" "Yeah." His tone shifted just slightly. Lower. More focused. "I can show you how to actually push past it." I hesitated. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like this wasn't part of the usual routine. "Like, now?" I asked. Marcus nodded once. "Gym's quiet. No distractions. That's when real training happens." There was a pause. I should have just laughed it off. Said I was tired. Gone home. Instead, I heard myself say, "What kind of training?" That's when he smiled. Not big. Not obvious. Just enough to make my stomach tighten. "Different," he said. I don't know why I followed him. Seriously, I've thought about that moment a lot. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way he always seemed so sure of everything. Or maybe it was the fact that, deep down, I wanted to see what he meant. Marcus led me past the main floor, toward the back section of the gym, the area most people didn't use much. Functional training space, mats, a couple mirrors. Empty. Completely empty. He stopped in the middle of it and turned to face me. "All right," he said. "First rule." I folded my arms slightly, trying to act more relaxed than I felt. "There are rules." His eyes flicked over me, slow. "Yeah," he said. "You don't rush." Something about the way he said it made my chest feel tight again. I nodded. "Okay." He stepped closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel his presence. "Second rule," he added. "You listen." I swallowed. "I've been listening." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Not like this." And before I could respond, his hand finally settled on my waist firm. Steady. Guiding me just a half step into position. "Feet here," he said quietly. "Shoulders back." His touch lingered just a second longer than necessary. And for the first time since I met him, I wasn't thinking about the workout anymore. I had a feeling this extra training wasn't going to be simple. And the worst part? I didn't want it to be. I should have been focusing on my form. That's what I told myself as Marcus adjusted my stance. His hand still resting against my waist, steady and warm through my shirt. It wasn't inappropriate. Not really. But it also wasn't nothing. Relax your shoulders, he said quietly. I exhaled, trying to do exactly that, but the second his fingers pressed slightly, guiding me back, my body reacted in a way that had nothing to do with training. Like that, he added. Yeah, I muttered, a little too quickly. Got it. But I didn't. Not really. Because my attention wasn't on my shoulders. Or my stance. Or anything he was actually saying. It was on him. On how close he was standing now. On the way his voice dropped when it was just the two of us back here. On how different everything felt compared to the main floor. Ethan, he said. I blinked. Yeah. You're doing it again. Doing what? Thinking instead of feeling. I let out a small laugh. That sounds weirdly deep for a gym session. Marcus didn't smile this time. Try it, he said. Don't overthink it. Just move how I tell you. There was something in his tone, calm but firm, that made it hard to argue. So I nodded. Okay. Good. He stepped around me, slower this time, like he was taking his time getting into position behind me. Now, he said, voice closer again. Bend your knees. Slow. I did. Slower. I went down more carefully, trying to control the movement. Better, he murmured. His hand slid from my waist to my lower back, applying just enough pressure to guide my posture. Keep your back straight. I swallowed. Yeah. Stay there, he added. I froze in position, muscles already starting to shake slightly from holding it. Seconds passed. Too many seconds. Still good? He asked. Yeah, I think so. Think, he repeated softly. Or no. I huffed out a breath. Okay, I know. That earned a quiet exhale from him, almost like a suppressed laugh. Good. Then his hand pressed a little firmer against my back. Now come up. Slow. I pushed up, controlled just like he'd said. And the second I stood fully upright, I turned slightly more instinct than intention. Marcus was closer than I expected. Like really close. I didn't even realize how much space he'd closed until I was facing him. For a second, neither of us said anything. You feel the difference? He asked. His voice was low. Not quiet exactly, but contained. Yeah, I said. It's harder. He nodded once. Because you're actually doing it right. I let out a breath, running a hand through my hair. Guess I've been cheating the whole time. Most people do. There was a pause. Then, but you don't have to. I looked at him. Something shifted again. Subtle, but there. This didn't feel like normal trainer talk anymore. Marcus. I started, not even sure what I was going to say. He didn't interrupt. Just waited, which somehow made it worse. I mean, I continued, trying to steady my voice. This is different than usual. Yeah, he said. No hesitation. No pretending. Just, yeah. My chest tightened slightly. Different how? I asked, even though I already had an idea. Marcus tilted his head, studying me like he was deciding how honest to be. Less distractions, he said first. I raised an eyebrow. That's not what I meant. I know. Another pause. Then he stepped just a little closer. Not enough to touch, but enough that I felt it. You actually pay attention back here, he said. To the workout? His eyes held mine. Not just that. There it was. Clear enough that I couldn't pretend I didn't understand. My heart picked up, faster than it should have been after just a few controlled reps. Marcus? I said again, quieter this time. Relax, he replied. We're still training. I let out a breath, somewhere between a laugh and something else. Yeah, sure. But neither of us moved. Not right away. And the longer we stood there, the harder it was to ignore the fact that this extra training had already turned into something else entirely. I just didn't know how far he was planning to take it, or why I wasn't stopping him. I don't know who moved first. That's the part that still gets blurry when I think back on it. 1 second, we were just standing there too close, saying nothing. The next, something shifted. Marcus exhaled slowly, like he was making a decision. Again, he said. But his voice didn't sound the same anymore. One more set. I nodded, even though my body was already tense for a completely different reason. Yeah, okay. I turned back into position, trying to reset my focus. Feet planted. Shoulders back. Slow, he reminded. I started lowering myself again, controlling every inch of the movement like he'd shown me. Good, he murmured. This time, his hands came back faster. One at my waist, the other lower on my back. More direct, more certain. Hold it, he said. I froze at the bottom again, muscles shaking slightly. But it wasn't just the strain anymore. It was the way he was touching me now, not just correcting, but staying. You feel that? He asked quietly. Yeah, I breathed. Yeah. Where? I swallowed. My legs, mostly. His hand pressed slightly firmer. And I hesitated, because I knew what he meant. And I knew he knew. And more, I admitted. There was a pause behind me. Then I felt it, his breath, closer than before. Don't rush it, he said softly. That phrase again. But it didn't sound like it was about the workout anymore. Come up, he added. I pushed back to standing. Slower this time, my heart pounding way harder than it should have been. The second I straightened, I turned again. This time, Marcus didn't give me space. He was right there, close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to look at him. Better, he said, but his eyes weren't on my form anymore. They were on me, and I felt it. That same tension from before, but stronger now. Clearer. Marcus. I started, quieter than before. Yeah? He replied. I hesitated, because I didn't even know what I was asking. What is this? I finally said. For a second, he just looked at me. Then he stepped even closer. This time, there was no space left. It's still training, he said. I let out a small breath, almost laughing. That's not. I'm serious. He cut in, calm but firm. You just haven't realized what you've been holding back. My chest tightened. Holding back what? His gaze dropped for a split second, then came back up. Control, he said. But it didn't feel like that was the full answer. Not even close. I didn't step away. That was the moment I could've. Should've, probably. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. Then show me, I said. I don't even know where that came from. But the second the words left my mouth, something in his expression shifted. Not surprise. More like confirmation. Careful, he said quietly. With what? His hand lifted slightly, hovering near my side again, but not touching yet. With asking for more. My pulse jumped. I thought that was the point, I replied. Another pause. Then finally, his hand settled back on me. Slower this time. Intentional. All right, Marcus said. And the way he said it made it very clear this extra training was only just getting started. That should have been the moment I backed off. There was still time. It wasn't too late to laugh it off, grab my stuff, and pretend none of this had started shifting into something else. But I didn't move, and neither did Marcus. His hand stayed on my side, firm, steady, not guiding anymore. Just there. You sure about this? He asked. The question sounded casual. But it wasn't. I held his gaze, my heart beating harder than it had during any set that night. Yeah, I said. No hesitation this time. Something in his jaw tightened slightly, like he was holding something back. Then don't overthink it, he said quietly. I let out a breath. You keep saying that, because you keep doing it. Fair. But this wasn't just about thinking. This was something else entirely. Then what do? I asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, his hand shifted, sliding just slightly around my side. Not pulling me in, but not letting me drift away either. Stay right there, he said. I almost laughed under my breath. I haven't moved. I know. His voice dropped again. Just stay with it. The silence stretched between us. But it didn't feel awkward. Felt heavy. Like something was building and neither of us wanted to break it too soon. Turn around, he said after a moment. I blinked. Again. Yeah. I hesitated for half a second, then did it. Facing away from him now, I became hyper-aware of everything. Where he was standing, how close he was, the space between us, or lack of it. Same position, he said. I set my feet again, slower this time. Deliberate. Good, he murmured. His hands came back, but not the same as before. Not just quick corrections. They stayed. One at my waist, one at my lower back. And this time, when he adjusted me, it felt different. Less like instruction, more like intention. Slow, he reminded. I lowered myself again, focusing but not really. Because every second, I could feel him right there behind me. Close, too close. Hold it, he said. I froze at the bottom, muscles shaking slightly again. But it wasn't just the strain. It was the way his hands hadn't moved away this time. You're still rushing it in your head, he said. I'm literally holding it, I muttered, trying to sound normal. I know, he said, but you're waiting to get out of it. That hit a little too accurately. Maybe, I admitted. His grip tightened just slightly. Don't, he said. A pause. Stay in it. The words landed heavier than they should have. And I did. I stayed. A few more seconds. Long enough that my breathing got uneven. Long enough that everything started to blur together, the workout, the tension, him. All right, he said finally, softer now. Come up. I pushed back to standing, slower than before. Controlled. Exactly how he wanted. But the second I straightened, his hands didn't move away. Not immediately. And for a second I just stood there, feeling them there. Waiting. I turned again. This time slower. Marcus didn't step back. Didn't even pretend to. We were closer than before. Close enough that I could see the slight shift in his expression, the way he was watching me now, not like a trainer, but like something else entirely. You're learning, he said quietly. I let out a small breath. Feels like more than that. Yeah, he replied. No denial. No joke. Just, yeah. My chest tightened again. So what now? I asked. Another pause. Then Marcus tilted his head slightly, studying me. Now, he said, you decide if you actually want to keep going. I frowned slightly. I already said I do. That was before you knew what it meant. The way he said that, calm, direct, it hit different. I held his gaze. And now? I asked. Silence. A long one. Then, his hand lifted again, brushing lightly against my side before settling there. Not pulling, not pushing, just there. Now it's your move, he said. And just like that, the control shifted. Not to him, to me. And I realized something in that moment. I wasn't just following anymore. I was choosing. And I had no idea how far I was about to take it. I didn't expect him to actually give me the choice. Up until that moment, it felt like I was just following. Letting Marcus lead, letting him set the pace, tell me what to do, how to move, when to hold, when to stop. But now, your move, he said. And just like that, everything shifted. I stood there, staring at him, trying to figure out what that even meant. My heart was still racing, my body still tense from the workout, but there was something else layered over it now. Something sharper. You're serious? I asked. Marcus didn't flinch. Yeah. No smile. No teasing. Just that same calm, steady tone. I exhaled slowly, running a hand over the back of my neck. This doesn't exactly feel like training anymore, I said. It is, he replied. I raised an eyebrow. Pretty sure this isn't in any program. That finally got a faint smirk out of him. No, he admitted. It's not. Silence again. But it felt different this time. Less uncertain. More expectant. I don't know what made me step closer. Maybe it was the way he didn't move, didn't push, didn't pull, just waited. So I closed the distance. Not much. Just enough that now I was the one invading his space. His eyes flicked down for a split second, then back up. You're thinking again, he said quietly. Yeah, I replied. But I'm still moving. That earned me a slightly longer look. True. My hand hovered for a second, mirroring what he'd been doing to me earlier. Close enough to touch. Not quite there yet. Still part of the lesson? I asked. Marcus's voice dropped. Depends what you do next. That did it. That was the moment something clicked. Not in a dramatic way, just clear. So I stopped hesitating and let my hand settle against his side. It wasn't a big move, but it felt like one. Marcus didn't react immediately, didn't pull away, didn't correct me, just stayed there. But I felt it. The shift. You sure? He asked again, quieter this time. I nodded. Yeah. Another pause. Then his hand came back this time, not guiding, not adjusting. Just resting against me, matching what I'd done. Equal. All right? He said under his breath. And something about the way he said it, like he'd been holding that back this whole time, made my chest tighten again. What now? I asked softer. Marcus stepped in closer. No space left between us now. Now, he said. You stop pretending you don't know what this is. I let out a breath, almost a laugh, but it came out uneven. Yeah, okay. Because at this point, there was no pretending. Not from him, not from me. For a second, we just stood there like that. Close. Still. Neither of us rushing anything. And I finally understood what he meant earlier. Don't rush it. Not the workout. Not this. Let it build. Let it sit. You've been holding tension in all the wrong places, Marcus said quietly. I huffed. That sounds like something you say to every client. Not like this. His hand shifted slightly against my side. Not moving away. Just there. Then fix it, I said. The words came out before I could think about them. And the second they did, his expression changed again. Subtle, but real. Careful, he murmured. You already said that. Yeah. A beat. I meant it. I didn't step back, didn't look away, and neither did he, which meant one thing. We were both still choosing this. And whatever this extra training had turned into, it wasn't stopping here. There was a point where it stopped feeling like a decision. Not because I lost control, but because I stopped questioning it. Marcus didn't rush anything. That was the first thing I noticed. Even now, standing close enough that I could feel his breathing, he didn't push further right away. Like he was waiting, still giving me space to back out. You're quiet, he said. So are you, I replied. A faint smirk touched his lips. I already said what needed to be said. Yeah, I asked. And what was that? His eyes held mine. That you know what this is. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I said. I do. No more dodging. No more pretending this was just about form and reps. His hand shifted slightly again, still on my side. But firmer now. Grounding. Then don't hesitate, he said quietly. I'm not, I replied. But even as I said it, I knew there was still that last bit of tension in me. Not doubt, just the weight of crossing that final line. Marcus noticed. Of course he did. You still are, he said. I frowned slightly. How? You keep stopping right before you actually commit. That hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. I stepped closer. That wasn't hesitation. That was a choice. The space between us disappeared completely. This time I didn't wait. Didn't hover. My hand moved more confidently. Settling against him the way his had been on me earlier, steady. Intentional. Not testing. Not unsure. Marcus exhaled quietly, not surprised, just acknowledging it. Better, he said. I let out a small breath. You always critique everything? Only when it matters. There was a pause. Then, his hand slid slightly along my side again, slower this time, more deliberate. You feel the difference now? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, because I did. Not just physically. It was the shift. From uncertainty to something more solid. Good, he murmured. And then, finally, he stopped holding back. Not in a sudden way. Not overwhelming. Just clear. His movements weren't about correcting anymore. They weren't neutral. Everything felt intentional now. Measured. Like he'd been pacing this the entire time. Waiting for me to catch up. You're not rushing anymore, he said. Guess I learned something? I replied quietly. That's the point. I almost laughed under my breath. Pretty unconventional teaching method. That's why it works. For a second, everything went still again. Not awkward, not uncertain, just settled. Like we'd both crossed into the same understanding. No more guessing, no more testing. I looked at him, really looked this time, and it hit me. This wasn't something random. He'd seen it. From the start. Every glance. Every hesitation. Every moment I didn't pull away. He just waited. You knew, I said. It wasn't really a question. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Knew what? That I wouldn't walk away. A small pause. Then, I had a feeling, he admitted. I shook my head, a quiet laugh slipping out. Yeah, figures. Silence again. But this time it felt different. Not heavy, not tense, just real. So what happens now? I asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at me steady, focused, like he had been all night. Then he said quietly, now we stop pretending this was just about training. And for the first time since this started, there was nothing left to figure out. Only what we were going to do next. There it was. No more pretending. No more hiding behind form or control or any of the things Marcus had been using to ease us into this. Now it was just us, standing there, too close, too aware. Say it, Marcus said quietly. I frowned slightly. Say what? What this actually is. My chest tightened. Not because I didn't know, but because saying it out loud made it real in a different way. I exhaled slowly. It's not training, I said. His eyes didn't leave mine. No, he agreed. Silence stretched between us for a second. Then I added, quieter. And you knew that way before I did. A small pause. I suspected, he said. I let out a breath, shaking my head slightly. Yeah, right? For a moment, neither of us moved. But the tension wasn't the same anymore. Before, it was uncertain. Now, felt decided. So what now? I asked again. Marcus stepped in just slightly, not much, but enough to remind me how close we already were. Now, he said, we stop acting like this is accidental. I swallowed. Because yeah, nothing about this felt accidental anymore. Not the way he looked at me. Not the way I hadn't walked away. Not the way we were both still standing here. You're still thinking, he added. I huffed out a quiet breath. You keep saying that. Because you keep doing it. Maybe I just like knowing what I'm getting into. Marcus tilted his head slightly. And if you already do? That hit. Because I did. I knew exactly what this was now. Then I guess. I started, then stopped. Yeah? He prompted. I held his gaze. Then I stopped holding back. Something in his expression shifted again. Subtle, but real. Finally, he said under his breath. This time when I moved, I didn't hesitate. No hovering. No second guessing. Just action. Closing whatever space was left. And that was it. That was the moment everything clicked into place. Not rushed. Not messy. Just clear. Marcus exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that in the entire time. His hand settled more firmly against me, not testing anymore. Certain. You see, he said quietly. Yeah, I replied. My voice came out lower than I expected. I do. There was no more conversation after that. Not the kind we'd been having before. No more explaining. No more defining it. Because we didn't need to. The gym around us felt completely irrelevant now. The equipment, the mirrors, the empty space, none of it mattered. It was just background. You're not rushing anymore, Marcus said after a moment. I let out a small breath. Took me a while. That's fine, he replied. A pause. Most people never get there. I almost laughed. Yeah, well, guess I had a good coach. That earned me the smallest hint of a smile. Guess you did. And just like that, what started as a normal workout turned into something neither of us was pretending to misunderstand anymore. The only question left was what this meant once we walked out of that gym. And for the first time all night, I wasn't sure if I wanted to think that far ahead. We didn't leave right away. That surprised me the most. I thought once everything clicked, once whatever this was became real, we'd snap out of it. Grab our things, act normal, pretend it didn't just shift into something neither of us could ignore anymore. But we didn't. The gym stayed quiet around us. Same empty space. Same dimmed lights. Same late night calm. Only now it felt different. Like we were the only two people in it. I stepped back first. Not far. Just enough to breathe properly again. Marcus didn't stop me. Didn't pull me back. He just watched calm, steady, like he always had. "You good?" he asked. The question sounded simple. But it wasn't. I ran a hand through my hair, letting out a slow breath. "Yeah," I said. "Just processing, I guess." A small nod. "That's fair." I grabbed my water bottle, taking a long drink mostly just to do something. To ground myself. Because my head was finally catching up to what just happened. And it was a lot. "You do this often?" I asked, glancing at him. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. "Offer extra training?" I huffed a quiet laugh. "You know what I mean." A pause. Then, "No," he said. Simple. Direct. I studied him for a second. "You're not just saying that?" "No." There wasn't even a hint of hesitation. And for some reason, I believed him. "Then why me?" I asked. That question came out before I could stop it. Marcus looked at me for a moment, really looked. Like he was deciding how much to say. Then, "You stayed," he said. I frowned slightly. "That's it." "No," he added. "You noticed. You didn't ignore it. And you didn't run from it." Another pause. "You met me halfway." That landed deeper than I expected. I leaned back against one of the benches, letting that sink in. "Yeah," I muttered. "Guess I did." Marcus stepped a little closer, but this time, it didn't feel charged. Not tense. Just normal. Well, new normal. "So what happens now?" I asked again. But this time, the question meant something different. Not "what are we doing right now?" More like, "what happens after this?" Marcus crossed his arms slightly, thinking. "We keep it simple," he said. "Simple?" I repeated. "Yeah." He shrugged lightly. "We don't overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be." I let out a small breath. That sounds like something I'd mess up. "That's why I'll remind you." I smirked slightly. "Of course you will." There was a quiet moment. Not awkward. Just settling. "You coming tomorrow?" he asked. I looked at him, raising an eyebrow. "After this? You're asking like it's just another session?" A hint of a smile. "It can be." That made something in my chest shift again. Not tension. Not confusion. Something lighter. "Yeah," I said after a second. "I'll be here." Marcus nodded once. "Good." Then he turned slightly, like he was about to head back to the main floor. But before he did, "Ethan." I looked up. "Yeah." A brief pause. Then, "Don't start rushing things again." I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head. "Yeah, I figured that was coming." We walked out of that back area together. No weird distance. No awkward silence. Just different. And as I grabbed my bag and headed for the locker room, one thing kept replaying in my head. I came in for a normal workout. Marcus offered extra training. And somehow, I walked out with something I wasn't even looking for. Not just progress. Not just control. But something real. Something I chose. And the craziest part? I knew this wasn't the end of it. Not even close.